So welcome everybody to the Greene County Leaders March 2021 session on stewardship and sustainability. Welcome to those who are Greene County Leader alumni and those who are joining for a taste of Greene County Leaders. To everyone joining now and to everyone tuning in later for the recording of the session. We are so glad you are here. I am Victoria Solomon. I'm the Community Resource Development Educator with Extension Greene County, and Cara Carper is the Executive Director of Greene County Development Corporation. I also want to give a special recognition to Greene County Leaders Board members. I know we have a number joining in on the session today. So if it is possible to turn on your video, please do so. Trust me when I say we definitely don't judge backgrounds. Kids and pets are more than welcome to join. And you are definitely welcome to have lunch during this session. In the chat, let's do some quick introductions so we can get to know each other a little bit. Please put your name and maybe where you work in the chat. Like I said, I'm Victoria Solomon. I'm with Extension. I work in Monroe. I live outside of Monticello. I'm on the board for the Southwestern Wisconsin Community Action Program, Southwest CAP, and I'm a co-owner with Perfection Produce. So like I said, please feel free to put that in the chat. I know we have some new folks joining, and special welcome to you. We are so glad you are here. I want to give a quick introduction to Greene County Leaders. The entire purpose of the program is to help build leadership skills, to deepen understanding of community issues here in Greene County communities, and to provide opportunity to create and expand community networks. This program is possible through a partnership with UW-Madison Division of Extension Greene County and Greene County Development Corporation with strong support from lots of businesses and organizations around Greene County. So today we're talking about stewardship and sustainability. We'll start with an engaging session with guest speaker Amy Seeboth-Wilson, Sustainability Coordinator with UW-Platteville. We'll have a panel discussion on stewardship in action with Greene County Leader alumni Richard Thoman and Nick Hein. And at different times during the session today, we'll have breakout groups as a chance for connecting with fellow participants and sharing lessons learned. I recognize that a lot has happened in the last 12 months with the pandemic and ripple effects with the pandemic. And I know that there has been a lot happening for many community members where there have been so many challenges, serious challenges that have been happening for longer than the last year. Last spring, when Greene County Leaders went virtual for the first time, we checked in with people and we recognized that the pandemic was definitely unexpected. We were all dealing with lots of challenges. And at the same time, we talked about gratitude a lot in Greene County Leaders. So were there things that people were grateful for or even bringing people joy? And one of the things that came up consistently was going outside and enjoying the parks and the trails and seeing the trees. Spring was coming, and even when things are challenging, that was something that people identified as being grateful for. To be able to be outside and see the trees with the leaves coming back. So last year, Greene County Leaders did something different, and we decided to plant a tree for every year of this iteration of Greene County Leaders. Because even when things are challenging and the day-to-day or hour-to-hour is a challenge, there is hope for the future. So today, we live with resources and in communities shaped by generations before us, and the decisions we make now may shape the lives and experiences of generations after us. The trees, the trails, and the parks, those were all things that previous generations made possible for us. And today, in this session, we are focusing on stewardship and sustainability. This is an opportunity to dive deeper into the quote on the Greene County Leaders Leadership Grove plaque. The true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. With that, I'm very happy to introduce our first speaker for today, Amy Seeboth-Wilson, Sustainability Coordinator with UW-Platteville. 66% of U.S. students now consider environmental impacts in their college enrollment decisions. Amy helps UW-Platteville deliver on this vision. Since joining the university in 2012 as their sustainability coordinator, she's built a self-funding waste minimization program, developed a citywide public bus service, and strengthened native and low maintenance management across UW-Platteville's 200 acres of natural areas. Currently, Amy is overseeing the construction of a 5-acre solar array, which during this fall will be 50 times larger than any other solar project owned by the state of Wisconsin, offsetting campus electricity by 17% and saving taxpayers $217,000 per year. Amy has a master's degree from UW-Madison, is a certified urban planner, a UW Extension Master Gardener, and a board member for Renew Wisconsin. She is a proud mother of 2. With that, I hand it over to Amy.
Thank you so much, Victoria. That was a wonderful introduction in so many different ways. And hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today. You look like a fun group of people to get to talk with. I'm excited to hear about your different experiences and perspectives. But before we talk, I would like us all to take a moment of reflection, because I think that's one of the best ways we can talk about sustainability, is to sort of think about what it means to us. So I have an assignment right off the bat. Is everybody ready? Yeah, some nods. Cool. Awesome. All right. I'm going to ask you a question. So get a piece of paper ready, and we're going to take a few minutes, and you're going to write down your reflection, your answer to this question. Let me see. I'm going to screen share it. There we go. When you imagine the best future possible, what do you envision for your family, your community? It's a very open-ended question that is intentional. Go ahead and spend a few minutes thinking on that question and writing down your answer. There's no right and wrongs whatsoever. When you imagine the best future possible, what do you envision for your family and your community? We'll just take one more minute. I'm seeing people start to look up. Others are still writing. All right. Okay, there's a lot of us here. So what I'd love to do is have a really thorough conversation about this vision, but we have a Zoom meeting and a lot of people and not a ton of time. So instead, what I'd love for you guys to do is, can everybody use the chat? Can you, if you're comfortable with the chat, go ahead and stick your keywords in there. What are some of the things that are coming up in your vision? Go ahead and just like type away, toss a word or two or a sentence, copy and paste it, or type it right into that chat. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing, no worries. All right, needs met for all. Excellent equal education and resources. A connected, healthy, sustainable community, support for all. Safe, socially welcomed and appreciated. Clean air, water, clean environments. Unity and appreciation. Ooh, off-grid farmstead, local food, neighbors who can talk across differences, create support, inclusive communities, financially stable and fulfilled, strong sense of safety, connectedness, good jobs, amenities, finding common ground, civility, natural resources available to all, 4 seasons and comfortable housing, safety, vitality, health, connectedness, gathering and attending events without restriction. That's a timely one. Spiritual, well, emotionally, civil, safe, outdoors in the arts, strong education, opportunities for all. You guys, this is wonderful. I feel inspired. This is all a lot of really positive, really good stuff. Physically active and healthy needs met. So I'm going to make a few, I'm going to pull a few threads out here. I'm still seeing them come in. This is wonderful. Intellectually challenged. I love that. So common threads that we're hearing. You guys are mostly, it's not, I can't necessarily say all of you, but a lot of this is tied toward people and the experience of people, right? So we're thinking about how the world will look for humans in the future. We are thinking about the future, right? Because I asked that in the original statement. And in order to get to this point of making a better world, we're talking about all different types of experiences. We're talking about environmental assets, healthy water, healthy air. I love that so many of you are talking about healthy relationships and interworkings of people and the way we're socially working together. I love that you guys are all thinking about that positive experience for the most part. I've seen some comments come up here about finances, like making sure that we've left a balanced budget. So the common thread is that sustainability is about making sure future generations have a good quality of life. So the technical definition defined by the United Nations is much longer. It's about seeing that future generations have access to all of the same resources that we had access to, and it gets kind of like wordy. But the gist of it is just knowing that future people, future humans on Earth have a good quality of life. Reading your comments, it looks like you guys all get the gist of that, which is awesome. One of the things that often comes up when we talk about sustainability is this connection to environmentalism. And so I see a real tension sometimes in people thinking that sustainability is purely for the pursuit of protecting the environment. But in your responses, I'm seeing an awareness that this isn't about environmentalism. This is actually about people. And you guys realize that in order to have good quality of life, we need to protect the environment, right? So we need to make sure there's water, there is water, clean air, good trees we can use to make paper, etc. Right? So at its core, sustainability is about people. I'm going to hammer that home again. And environmental assets or ecological services are one of the ways we can ensure that these humans in the future have a good quality of life. So one more thing I just want to touch on is when we talk about the future, we're being very abstract. And so I don't have a right or wrong here. I'm just pointing out that the future could be next month. It could be next year. It could be next 10 years from now, or it could be 100 or 200 years from now. There's no right or wrong when we define future and sustainability. I think wherever we set the conversation as defining what the future is, works backwards to help us think about what our goals are, right? And so the final thing I want to just bring up to kick things off before we do a really fun exercise is that sustainability is about systems thinking. You guys have probably been hearing words like systemic racism, systems thinking. You're all probably familiar with this in some way, but the core of it is that you have to think about what your value is, and then you can break down different barriers in getting there. You have to think about how everything's interrelated instead of just thinking about one isolated topic at a time. Okay? Can I get some nods? Are we sort of following along? General gist of it. All right. So I will take just one moment. Are there any questions to start this off? I know we can launch into a lot of probably pretty big conversations here, but are there any really high level questions just real quick burning on anybody's mind? I'll just wait a second because Zoom can be awkward. Go ahead and stick it in the chat or raise your hand or just shout it out.
No, Amy, I just say I like how you distinguish between, the environment and people, as you said a second ago, and it kind of puts a priority on, focus. I like it, that you draw the attention to people side of it. That's the purpose of what we're looking at.
Sweet.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And my hope with highlighting that is that this can become more relevant to you in the different roles you play within your community, right? I'm sure most of you are probably here because of a deep, passionate care about the people around you. And that's what this is about, right? Nicholas, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to add that sustainability is about creative, constructive, cooperative relationships between all living things, not just for people. And people depend on all living things, but we need to be totally conscious that we do.
Yeah, right. I mean, I am definitely hammering on the people. And then I'm also bringing in this idea of systems thinking. And I think that's where you're really strong in that comment is we are all interconnected in ways that we don't even understand, which makes all of this a little bit more profound and can be a little bit overwhelming. And so we'll try and anchor the conversation in experiences that we have all shared so that we can start thinking more broadly about how we have ripple impacts in more complicated ways than we may even be aware of. That's a really important point. Okay, anybody else? I'm seeing some general nods. This is good. Okay, so now we get to do the really fun exercise. I've done this exercise with various groups in the past, and it can be a really awesome conversation starter. So bear with me as you're working your way through it. Know that we will have time to process, digest, and provide feedback on it. So we're going to do what's called the ecological footprint calculator. There's a lot of different calculators out there that people can do. I don't know if any of you guys are ever on social media and you see people sharing these, take this test to figure out blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of different ways you could calculate your ecological footprint. The one that we are going to do right now, I really liked after researching a variety and many different calculators. I really like this one because it's grounded in some very great science and is very justifiable. There's a lot of different methodology that goes into this. It's pretty deep on the back end, but also then know that on the front end, we've reduced all this methodology to averages and like fairly simplistic questions to make it like an exercise that the average person can do. And we can process that at the back end. So I'm going to share the link in here. And then I ask you guys to take 5-10 minutes, whatever you need to work through this calculator on your own. And then we will regroup. And what we're going to do is go into breakout rooms and process what we've experienced through this calculator. So again, a few takeaways. It's a high level assessment. Know that it may seem overly simplistic or a little bit strange to you. That's okay. On the back end, there's really good science. And then the third thing is we're going to be able to have a conversation to process what we take away from this afterwards. All right. Am I missing anything, Victoria?
The one thing I would add is just Amy, I believe, will be putting the link in the chat that was also on the agenda, and you will not need to share what comes out of doing that unless you want to, unless there's anything that you want to share. So do you want to put that on the chat? And I will pause the recording while we are doing that.
All right. All right. Hi, everybody. So thank you for humoring us and doing that exercise. What we would like to do now, since there are so many of us, is we would like to take time to process, like I said, what you learned. But there's so many of us that we're going to do it in breakout sessions. So I believe Victoria very thoughtfully built breakout sessions that have a facilitator. Should most groups have a facilitator from Greene County leaders?
Yes, so each group has a facilitator, and before we open those up, so you know, the breakout rooms will not be recorded, and I will put questions in the chat. And Amy, just let me know when you're ready to have those open up.
Perfect. So um, to regroup and just make sure we are all on the same page still, that the reason we're doing this exercise is to give us some prompts to understand what sustainability means to each of us. And now we're going to elevate that conversation, start thinking about how each of us as a leader plays the role in making the world more sustainable around us. Okay, so there's a lot to take in right here, but here Victoria's going to pop the question into the group chat, I believe, and then we'll do the breakouts. What we would like you guys to think about is, knowing the exercise we just did and processing all that, take some time to talk about your results, but we would like you then to think about what is your question is, what is one thing in an organization you are affiliated with, whether it's your employer, your business, your church, the city you're a part of, a nonprofit you belong to. What is one thing an organization you are affiliated with can do to help make your ecological footprint better? So through your affiliation with this organization, can that organization do anything to improve the ecological footprints of its members, for example, or of you as a member? And then the next question is, as a leader, you can make that possible, and what would it take? Okay. So it's a two-part question. What is one thing the organization you are affiliated with can do to make your ecological footprint better? And then as a leader, how would you get there? All right, so I guess I'd hope that one person from each group can take notes, and then we'll have about 10 minutes in the breakout, and then we'll do some reporting back. So the note taker can let us know the highlights from your team discussions. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Our breakout room's weird and wonderful. Can I see a show of hands? Did you guys have lively conversation in your rooms? Yeah, good. Okay, cool. I know in our room, we took a fair amount of time to sort of like think about how that ecological footprint calculator related to our lives and what it meant, and like kind of process that. And then we also talked about that question of what can an organization do to make things better. I'm wondering, we have 9 minutes. I think maybe let's take the first 4 to 5 minutes and talk about that high level summation of like, how did this ecological footprint calculator make you feel? What did you guys think of it? Did you have any big takeaways about the ecological footprint calculator? I think we should just take a minute to share. So anybody like to share on behalf of your group about your big takeaways?
And you can unmute, or you can put a response in the chat, whatever your preference is.
Amy, our group had a good discussion. We were talking a little bit about, and this is kind of an interesting thought, how a rural area is, some things are going to be a little more difficult to make an impact on. For example, public transportation. We don't have a bus service. We don't have a train we can ride. So we felt like, that was harder for us, but we also felt like other things in a rural area are maybe easier for us to do, like to get locally sourced, cheese or meat or, just produce, those types of things. Then we also felt like the meat consumption, we didn't necessarily see it as like a negative, because a lot of us are getting it from local farmers, and that footprint's going to look a lot different if you're getting meat from your local farmer down the street that was processed locally versus it came on a plane from California. So that was kind of what we had talked about, how, in a rural area, it's going to look a little different, but we felt like it was, an interesting, thing to take a look at.
You know what I love about what you're saying, Lori, is it really highlights the fact that this is a systems conversation. And I'm just going to bang that drum again and again and again. As the system that we live within our case, is rural, gives us certain disadvantages and advantages naturally, right? And so that's that framework that I challenge all of you to continue to look at this conversation through. Sustainability, of course, is part an individual decision, but it's a much more powerful decision when we're thinking about how we tackle it as a group, as a whole. What can we do within our organization and our community that can address these issues more systemically? We had a lot of discussion within our group about what type of vehicle we drive, and that's really important. My husband and I decided to get an electric hybrid 3 years ago. So we made that decision, and it's been really cool because I've learned from it and I'm able to talk more about it now to other people. I don't think the expectation is that everybody go out and buy a new car, right? But again, bringing that conversation back to what can an organization or a system do that can help us all be more sustainable and lower our ecological footprint. Thank you, Lori. That's a good point. Any other high-level takeaways?
We talked a lot about, what we could do, obviously, individually within our homes, but also within our organizations. But I think our biggest takeaway, Ron brought up the statement, how do we incent the behaviors we desire? And so we actually talked probably bigger level systems more, right? So we talked about the examples of, we know we need more affordable housing here. So how do we incent that housing to be ecologically friendly and environmentally friendly and energy efficient, because that's going to be, if that's important to us, then how do we incent that behavior? If we need public transportation in our community, how do we incent that when we don't have maybe a huge need that's but we definitely have a need? And so how do we incentivize people to do those things in a environmentally and ecologically friendly way?
I love that. I love that application. You're definitely thinking from that systems perspective. How do we create a structure that makes it easy for people to want to do the right thing? That's awesome. And thinking about housing is huge, because you can do a lot through a simple conversation about housing. That's where a lot of this stuff happens, right? Energy, transportation, food, it's all happening in houses everywhere, every day. That's really cool. Do any other groups want to share?
We had some really enlightened folks in our group who have been working on this for a long time and yet are only seeing small gains in their rating. And so we talked about how individually moving the needle is not really, doesn't help that much, but we all worked for bigger organizations. So we had somebody from Monroe Clinic, we had somebody from 4Cs, we had somebody from a village, somebody from a solar installer, a solar group person from Nick. You'll hear from him in a little bit, and how we could work with our organizations, because they have a much bigger impact than we personally. And one of the things that, we all drive a lot, and so what changes could our organizations make to help their employees be more sustainable, and also how could we again that incenting people to be more sustainable and having our organizations be more sustainable as well.
That's wonderful. And that's so you began, Cara, by talking about how people have tried very hard to turn that needle as an individual and find it very difficult. I see the same thing play out in my life. And on campus, that's one of the things I work very hard to do in my career. We get new college students on campus every year. And so I can spend all my time into infinity helping each individual understand how to make the right decision, which piece of plastic to put in which recycling bin, right? And retrain and retrain and retrain. Or, we can think about how UW-Platteville might stop using types of plastic that aren't recyclable. So we can change the system, so we can make it easier for the individual to not have to learn all the little rules. I'm going to put that in quotations. Sometimes I feel like sustainability becomes a death by 1,000 needles. If we put it onto every person to learn all the rules, to think about doing the right thing all the time, it's quite exhausting, and it may not even add up to really great results, right? So I love that reshaping it. How can we as an organization make it easy for people to do the right thing? Anybody else? I think we've got 2 minutes left.
Our group took it a little bit different from a standpoint of more specifics. So we talked about ways that we could affect change, even in just could businesses change lights out to LEDs, right? Could we try to incent or encourage businesses to just make that change? You know, is there a way to encourage and educate people to eliminate unnecessary travel? This last year we were forced to, but is there a way to just continue that mindset of, is it necessary to get in the car and go? You know, just things like encouraging less paper and printing, but then we also took that from a different angle of, if we're going to force them more toward, or not force, encourage more toward laptop or electronic usage, then is there a better way to incorporate renewable energy, because those devices have to be charged? So if we're going to switch and try to save on paper and print, then now we've created another problem, right? So how can we do that? I even brought up, you know, at church years ago, we washed all the little communion cups. They were glass. And now as we've transitioned over the years, people have stopped volunteering. And so now they've gone to plastic. It's easier to throw it away, right? So one of the thoughts was, could we use biodegradable cups? Or is that something that we could take back to churches and try to encourage using that type of material instead of plastic? So, you know, and even just, is there education around new moms and the efficiencies with cloth diapers versus disposable, and just what groups are we involved in, or where can we help to educate, and is that easier today than it used to be? And so maybe new moms would be more encouraged or willing instead of using the diapers. And so just things like that. We had real good conversation around different pieces instead of the systems.
This is wonderful. I so appreciate all of your feedback. And I think, you know, I personally would love to like have hours of conversation over coffee with all of you about this, because I think it's just really fascinating to think about how we are a part of a system and yet we make all these individual decisions every day. And I think Chris put into the chat, you know, great comments are coming out of here, and some dismay over how little impact sometimes we can have versus how much effort we put in. And that's really the crux of where this conversation is how can we make this sustainability conversation a positive one, an enlightened one, a more beneficial one for everybody. And that's what's so exciting for me to be able to be here with you as leaders, because you're the ones in that position to make these changes happen. No pressure. So with that said, I think Victoria has a couple of leaders that we are going to highlight here now about some of the decisions and directions they've taken within their organization to impact these changes.
Yes. So first off, a huge thank you, Amy. Let's give Amy a virtual round of applause. Thank you for taking the time to come and meet up with Greene County leaders today. Much appreciated. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Cara Carper with Greene County Development Corporation, and she's going to introduce some amazing alumni we have. We'll be sharing more.
Thanks, Victoria. Again, I'm Cara Carper with Greene County Development Corporation, and you'll note on the agenda, the next session, the next part of our session is called Inspiring Leaders, Stewardship and Sustainability in Action. So a little plug for Greene County leaders. I know, as I look around, I know a lot of you are Greene County Leader alumni, and I think that's awesome. And the two people we're going to be highlighting are Greene County Leaders alumni. And Amy, who was just on, was not Greene County Leaders alumni, but she was Community Leadership Alliance. I looked her up. She graduated in 2010 from Community Leadership Alliance, which is Lafayette, Grant, and Iowa County. So one of our sister leadership programs. So again, all the cool kids go through their county leadership program. So if you haven't gone through Greene County Leaders, the official day-long networking extravaganza, you'll learn so much, and I highly encourage you. Because again, look around, all the cool kids are Greene County Leaders alumni. Am I right? Yeah. Okay. So with that, I don't have much of an introduction because I didn't think ahead to get a good introduction from our next two speakers. We've got some questions facilitated. So we've got Richard Thoman, and Richard Thoman does many things. So Richard Thoman is on the Monroe City Council. He's also on the Greene County Board. So he's a city council member and a county board supervisor. He's actually my boss because he is on the Greene County Development Corporation. He's on the board as well as the executive committee. He owns the American Inn in Monroe. So if you're familiar with the American Inn, our hotel in here in Monroe, which is also Thoman Hospitalities. And of course, he's a Greene County Leader alumni. He graduated from the 2013-2014 class. He's extremely well connected. If I have a question about pretty much anything, I go to Richard because he knows the answer. So I think I'll start off with Richard and ask him a couple of questions, and then I'll move over to Nick, who is just, again, equally delightful, because green county leaders, those are the folks. All right. So Richard, you've got a lot of things that you're doing with sustainability, with your business, with your life, with the leadership roles that you've taken. What are some of the things you've done to promote sustainability in your business, in your community, and all the different roles you have?
Well, yeah, thanks for that introduction. I don't know if I can live up to all that now, but as an owner, I mean, and a property owner, you can do these things, you know, whether it's put solar panels on your business or your house, or change all your lights out to LED and whatnot. I know if you're not the owner or the manager, I think you just need to convince whoever you are working for, or whatever, maybe that, hey, you know, you could save a lot of money here or there, you know, doing this or that. But, I think the biggest thing, and I've saw, is just doing things on my own, not waiting for somebody else or for legislation to come down where, hey, you need to do this or that. Just, I know what's right. I know. And then also, the money guy I am, I know in the long run, it's going to save money. You're going to pay for electricity one way or another. So let's just pay a little more up front. It's kind of like renting something versus buying something. Once you own it, it's yours forever. So that's kind of how I look at it. I just, and I don't know if I answered your entire question.
You did. Also, I've got follow up. So you've
Okay.
been doing this, you've been doing sustainability, you've been doing these practices for a long time, kind of before it was cool. So
Yeah.
what really inspired you to start making these changes? Because again, you're the go-to person. What inspired you to start making changes?
Oh, I'm kind of a geek, but also, like I say, I kind of like not paying electric bills for eternity and whatnot. And years ago, I probably would have gotten into it earlier, but payback time was a lot longer than it is now nowadays. And then also you got government incentives. So I really don't understand why people don't do some of this unless they're, you know, moving from house to house. I have a son in the military, and he's not at one place too long. So putting solar panels up may not be a big priority to him because he's just going to leave them for somebody else. But I guess I'm kind of a geek guy, and I'm into all kinds of new technology. And if we can improve things, why not? You know, I'm maybe a little OCD too at times. So as I was telling our breakout group, just recycling, you know, I'll carry plastic bottles in my vehicle when I'm on vacation because I can't find a recycle receptacle. And, you know, and, you know, we compost. I don't throw things down in my drain. For starters, it's not good for your drain, but you know, I compost them or I take them out to my farm and give them to the chickens or whatever. And it's kind of, my parents also were real big into organic farming and that kind of thing. They didn't believe in a lot of chemicals. They were, you know, you can pull a weed or you can spray chemical on it. And so it kind of got me thinking about, you know, just the environment, you know, what's good for it. What is our water going to be good in the future? You know, if we keep doing this or that, or, you know, sustainability is just, I don't know, it just has been kind of a natural thing for me to be interested in.
So we all, most of us who are on this call work for an employer who could perhaps do more of these things. Do you have any ideas for us to convince our employers that perhaps there are changes that they could make? You've made it as a business owner, and it's helped your bottom line. What things can we talk about to our employers?
I think maybe if they do their homework and come to their employer and say, look, I did some research and, you know, you should think about this. It would save you money. As an employer, I'm always listening to my employees. Maybe I like their ideas or I don't, but I think they would welcome that. I'm not sure why they wouldn't. I don't know. I think just going to them and just making sure you kind of have all your ducks in a row and you know, where you can give a good argument, so to speak, that, you know, hey, if you did this, you would save money, which helps us all. And then, you know, too, you know, maybe you can pay your employees more if you're saving money on something else or whatever, you know, I don't know. Because employers are always looking to save money. Business people are, I know myself. If somebody comes to me with a good idea, I'm always willing to listen.
So you're willing to listen. You're always on the cutting edge. What do you see is what do you have planned for the future? What do you see that's coming down the pipe that you're really excited about?
I don't know, but I think more like we have an electric car charger in our business, and here's where I could go back as an employee. You know, I could convince my employer, and also we're listed on some websites because we do have solar panels on our building. That does attract people that are interested in sustainability. And I could probably, as an employee, say, hey, look, if you put a solar charger there, you're going to get people that drive Teslas or other vehicles, especially your all electric vehicles, because they need to charge. I mean, once they're empty, they can't put gas in, you know, and go to the next charger. They're done. So I think that's one thing. And I know on the city level, the mayor and I have talked about that. I said, you know, we need to get some maybe superchargers or something downtown. You know, we could get more people to come to Monroe, you know, if they have Teslas, and people that have them know where we are, and we're not on the map. And that's my fault. I need to get on the map that we do have an electric charger.
So I'm going to stop there so we can give Nick a little bit of time, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. So our second panelist is Nick Hein. And Nick Hein, I found out luckily he was in my breakout session. He has this is the delight of Greene County. We have people with so much enthusiasm, but also just the coolest degrees. He has an MBA in sustainable business. Now, again, who would have known? Only in Greene County, I swear. He grew up in Monroe and is very passionate about sustainability. And you know, he's probably has the lowest impact on the earth, probably of all of us who took Amy's sustainability test. And he's currently connected to the solar industry, which I heard about a little bit earlier this week. So I just want to talk a little bit with Nick. Nick, tell us about kind of your background and how you got connected with sustainability.
Yeah,
Oh, you're on mute.
me. Can I share my screen? No, you're mute. I guess not. Well, I'll start. I think for me, it started, I grew up in Greene County, first in Broadhead and then in Monroe. And when I was about 12 years old, I realized that I could ride my bike any place in the county. My parents wouldn't let me cross a busy street by myself, but if I took off on my bike, I could go anywhere. And as long as I got home safe, and they didn't hear about it on, Dad didn't hear about it on the sheriff's radio, I was good. And riding around Greene County in particular, I just, I guess it instilled in me a sense of self-sufficiency. I was, you know, getting to where I needed to go or where I wanted to go under my own power. I didn't depend on a lot from other people to keep doing it. And so that's kind of gone with me. And my second love after bicycling was flying. And I just not to make myself sound too cool, but besides the MBA in sustainable business, I have a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering, master's degree in mechanical engineering, and I worked for 30 years in aerospace designing cool airplanes and rockets for that would be useful for people. And engineering, particularly for aircraft, is you have to be really careful. You have to, you know, sustain flight. You have to get where you're going with enough fuel left over, so nobody worries. And yeah, I think that's where it started. I'll talk a little bit about my current work. I work for a solar energy co-op.
You can share your, if Nick, you should be able to share your screen if that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah. So this is my car. Let me see. Are you seeing this? Are you seeing my slides now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Yeah. This is my car. It should be full screen now. I live in Madison, coincidentally in the home where my grandparents raised my dad. It's a walking distance and biking distance from just about everything that we need on a regular basis. And so this vehicle, this is a bicycle legally, even though it's got 3 wheels and a cover. It allows me to get anywhere that I would need to go in any kind of weather without having to use a car. The co-op that I work for focuses on solar through financing and providing technical support to nonprofits, commercial, government, and industrial customers. Victoria gave me a couple of questions ahead of time that I'd like to share the answers to. She wanted to know what industry trends I see through my current work. I'm basically a consultant. I'm still looking for gainful employment, but I do communicate with a lot of people in sustainability here in Madison. Solar is just booming in all parts of the country, even West Virginia, where I lived for a while. In hardcore coal country, they're recognizing that it pays for itself back in 5 to 7 years. If you're a young parent saving for college, or if you're midlife and saving for retirement, there's no better financial investment than solar, because it'll pay for itself in 7 years. And after that, it'll be giving you a higher return on the money that you spend up front than any kind of conventional financial instrument could. Now that we're getting a lot of penetration with solar, we're realizing that that's not enough. That's a solution that's not reaching the scale of the problem that we have with too much carbon dioxide, global warming, too much energy use and resource depletion. And what we're finding is the next step is electrifying homes so that you can use the electricity you generate on your roof from solar to power all your appliances, not just your plug loads. And then in a climate like ours, where 80% of our energy goes into heating, we're finding that geothermal heat pumps are the best way to reduce energy demand. We're basically using the dirt and rocks and underneath our feet as a big battery that can store heat for up to 6 months at a time, so that when we have excess heat in July, we can store it in the ground and pull it back out in January.
We've got just a little bit of time left, and I want to have a little bit of time for questions.
Transportation electrification is the next challenge. That's an area where we're using a lot more energy than we should. If we electrify our cars, we'll use 1/3 to 1/4 the energy that we are now, and they won't produce any pollutants. Cost and financing are the biggest obstacles. And then with just a few minutes, I'd like to share this chart. If there's one thing I'd like you to remember leaving this conversation, it's that the ways that we're generating our heat and electricity now are only 25 to 33% efficient. There's 60, that's like with your car, if for every $4 you spend on gas, you're only getting $1 worth of transportation. And by using solar and geothermal and wind that don't produce any waste, we get nearly 100% of the energy out. We don't need to generate the amount of energy that we're using now from renewables. We only need to generate 1/3 as much, and that's doable. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Nick and Richard. Questions for Richard and Nick? This is great. Some great information, probably that a lot of people don't know a lot about.
I will say one thing. Nick brought one thing up that I forgot to mention. Geothermal I know my son's looking at maybe building a house, and I told him do geothermal. That I think Nick obviously would agree with me. That is huge. If you're going to build a house, it might cost more upfront.
I see
Yeah,
Ron had unmuted. Ron Spielman.
Yeah, my question is about electric cars. When we haven't had them long enough, so we don't know at the far end of the tunnel. What are we doing to recycle and dispose of the battery, the electric part of a car when they run out of being usable?
They're actually, when they're not usable in a car anymore, they're quite usable in a home. We throw them out of cars when they get down to like 90% of their capacity. But when you use them in a home, you're drawing the energy out at a much lower rate. And so they will last a lot longer, probably 10 to 20 years. And at the end of that, most of the materials in a battery are recyclable, and there's a burgeoning business coming about to handle that recycling. Right now, people are scrounging old Tesla batteries and old Nissan Leaf batteries to use in their home conversions of cars, because that second tier.
Okay, so right now there's multiple incentives, recycling being part of them, but recycling meaning reusing them in other ways. Okay, so we haven't really gotten to the point where the volume exceeds those alternate uses. So
the volume is being sucked up right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, this is a wonderful conversation, and obviously, oh, Amy, did you want to?
No, I was just gonna, I just think this is a very interesting conversation, and the technology, I just want to add that the technology is happening so fast, it's hard to answer some of those questions. And there's people looking at how you can use your car charge to reverse charge your house as a generator when the electricity goes out. There's just so many interesting conversations emerging within that conversation that it's kind of like sit on the cusp of your seat and hang on tight because it's coming. Right? And battery technology, man, when you start talking about the different types of batteries out there and what's being discovered right now, it's so rapid, it's so wild, and it's very interesting stuff happening. Again, geek out with you guys some other time.
Well, thank you so much for the good questions, and thank you so much to Nick and to Richard for being great panelists and for being great Greene County Leaders alumni. I'm going to turn it back over to Victoria.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. So with Greene County Leaders, we really celebrate constantly having a growth mindset and learning. And there were so many great lessons and conversations today. We're going to take a couple minutes for reflection. This is also an opportunity to quick connect with fellow participants again. We're going to go back into the breakout sessions. And in those sessions, please share what was one of the big things you learned today. And after today's session, what would you tell your team about how to be more sustainable as leaders? What would you share with your business, organization, or community about being intentional stewards and increasing sustainability? What might be one thing that you might do differently based on what you've learned? So I will put those questions in the chat and get the breakout rooms going again. Okay, let's see. I think everybody is back. Awesome, awesome. How were those breakout conversations? What big takeaways are there that you want to share? Can a couple people share out?
I can go to David Parr's and get my car charged.
That's true. That's just a couple feet that way. Kind of live with the guy.
I agree. We talked about that, and that, amazing. Like, how can we bring more of that to the community and then raise awareness? Like, who knew? So that's fantastic. And we talked about how can we bring these things to the conversation, whatever the conversation is. How can we talk about it either at the city or the county level? What do we need to do to make sure we are being good stewards of the environment, and how can we get to the next level beyond, I think Ron mentioned, beyond the leading edge of what we need to do to help incentivize people to do these things.
I would also add that it's a lot easier to do sustainability when you're putting up a new building. It's a lot cheaper than when you try to retrofit. So if you've got any new businesses coming in, make sure that they consider solar and geothermal from the start. Epic, the medical software company up here in Madison, they found that geothermal was their best way to save money as a corporation when they built their new campus. And so that's how the entire place is heated.
Other big takeaways or learnings? Do you see this as impacting how you think or about things?
I think some of this is evolving so fast that you take away today, if nothing else, unless you're Nick and you've got all this knowledge, the rest of us just need to say, don't rule things out. Be at least open in your inquiries. From the clinic standpoint, we're probably working on supercharged stations on our new parking lot, but I don't know it. And so, I'm going to go back and ask, all right, are we gearing up to be ready to do some of this? Because I think it's around the corner. It's not down the road. So
yeah, and I believe Richard is on one map anyway. He's the only place in Greene County that is a charger on any map.
I think it's in Serendipity, isn't it? That's on the map. I
Oh,
need to get on the map.
That is it. Yeah, you're right.
I need to get on there.
I tried to convince the YMCA to put a charger in, and they wouldn't do it.
So thank you everybody for joining us. We hope that you join us for our next session on Wednesday, April 14 on Leadership Legacy. Whether you're an alumni or a Greene County leader, someone who's new to Greene County leaders, there's always a really fantastic opportunity for reflection. So if you haven't already done so, please be sure to sign up. Also, in April, there will be a mini-series of sessions on local government, including time to connect with local, state, and federal elected officials and staff. So more information about that will be coming out next week. We will follow up with this session with an email about next week with additional resources and information. I know there are a couple questions in the chat, so we'll have an opportunity to respond to those. With that, thank you so much for joining us for the March Greene County Leader Session. It is a joy to be in community with you.